Have you ever imagined putting on a pair of shoes that practically builds itself layer by layer while you don't even notice? It might sound impossible, but the footwear industry is going through a silent revolution that almost nobody is talking about. 3D printed shoes are changing everything we know about comfort, design, and production. Most people still believe that making shoes is always an artisanal or traditional industrial process, but there's a new method that challenges all of that. It prints every detail with millimetric precision, without waste, without cutting anything, using materials that adapt to your feet, while also reducing environmental impact. And the most shocking part? This isn't the distant future, it's happening right now. Some of the world's leading brands are already producing customized, fully functional sneakers in just a few hours. If you're like me and often find yourself wondering, how do they even make this? Or, who came up with this crazy idea first? Then you're in the right place. Now imagine a machine working quietly, layer by layer, until a solid object takes shape that you can actually hold. That's how a 3D printed shoe is born. It all starts on a computer where a digital model defines every curve, texture, and even the ventilation pattern on the sole. This file acts like a map that guides the printer through each movement. Unlike traditional manufacturing, there's no cutting or material waste here. Everything is built from the ground up, at the precise rhythm of an invisible factory. Once the design is ready, the printer gets the order to begin production. Tiny nozzles heat up the polymer, turning it into a fine thread that's deposited layer after layer. The sole comes first, reinforced with internal honeycomb-like structures that absorb impact without losing strength. Then, the upper part begins to form, made from lighter, more flexible materials that move naturally with the human foot. It's like watching a sculpture come to life on its own, inside a space controlled by engineering precision. Throughout the production process, sensors constantly monitor temperature, adhesion, and alignment. If a single layer goes wrong, the entire shoe could lose its functionality. That's why the quality control is so strict. It feels more like a scientific lab than a typical factory. In some cases, high-powered lasers are used to fuse microscopic particles, creating a more durable and detailed surface. The result is a shoe that comes out of the printer almost ready to wear, with minimal manual finishing. But that's only the beginning of the story, because to truly understand this innovation, we need to look at where the materials come from. Behind every 3D printed shoe lies a strategic choice of materials. It's not enough to just print with any kind of plastic. The key is to find polymers that combine flexibility, durability, and comfort when in contact with human skin. One of the most commonly used materials is TPU, or thermoplastic polyurethane, an elastic compound that can be stretched thousands of times without losing its shape. It allows the sole to absorb continuous impact while keeping the lightness every athletic shoe needs. Another common material is powdered polyamide, which, when fused with a laser, creates smooth and extremely durable surfaces. This material is so strong that it's also used in the aerospace industry, giving you an idea of how well it can withstand extreme conditions. For the upper part of the shoe, many factories use recycled polyester filaments made from discarded PET bottles. This connects technological innovation with sustainability, reducing the environmental impact of production. The technology behind this process is known as additive manufacturing. Unlike traditional production, which cuts, molds, or stitches separate pieces, here every component is built directly from the ground up. FDM printers, or fused deposition modeling systems, are used for rapid prototyping, while more advanced methods like SLS or selective laser sintering use lasers to fuse polymer powder into tiny, detailed layers. This precision makes it possible to design shoes that perfectly adapt to each person's foot, opening the door to a future of fully customized footwear. But materials and technology alone don't tell the full story. What really stands out is the historical impact of this revolution, and how a technique once limited to experimental prototypes has transformed the global footwear industry. The idea of making shoes with 3D printers sounded like science fiction just 2 decades ago. Back in the 1990s, the technology was restricted to research labs and cost millions of dollars, used only to create experimental prototypes. Major shoe brands saw it as something futuristic with no real commercial use. But the story began to change in the early 2000s, when 3D printers became smaller, faster, and more affordable. The turning point came when companies realized that 3D printing wasn't just a testing tool, but a new way to manufacture products. Adidas, for example, launched the FutureCraft 4D project in 2015, featuring soles created through a laser printing process. Nike and New Balance soon followed, each exploring different ways to combine advanced design, comfort, and production speed. From that moment on, 3D printed shoes were no longer just a curiosity. They became a symbol of the future of manufacturing. Today, this technology is redefining the concepts of consumption and production. Instead of making millions of identical pairs and storing them in huge warehouses, brands can now print on demand, producing only what's needed for each customer. This reduces waste, cuts logistical costs, and opens the door to something entirely new: mass personalization. Now an athlete can have sneakers shaped exactly to their feet, while everyday consumers can choose unique colors, textures, and finishes. This transition also connects with environmental issues. Traditional shoe manufacturing generates tons of waste, since many fabric and rubber scraps are thrown away. 3D printing, on the other hand, uses only the exact amount of material needed for each piece. Historically, this is as important as the invention of the sewing machine in the 19th century or the rise of automated assembly lines in the 20th. It marks the beginning of the era of direct digital manufacturing. And if the historical impact is already impressive, what comes next might change even more the way we see fashion and engineering. This is where the industrial evolution of this technology begins. In the early days, 3D printed shoes were slow to produce, fragile, and expensive. Each pair could take more than 24 hours to complete, and the machines used for printing occupied entire rooms. But the industry found ways to speed up the process and make it scalable. The first major breakthrough came with the introduction of multi-nozzle printers, capable of working on different parts of the same shoe at the same time. This reduced production time from several days to just a few hours. Then came hybrid systems that combined 3D printing with traditional methods like injection molding, bringing together the speed of mass production with the flexibility of additive manufacturing. Today, some factories run entire lines dedicated exclusively to 3D printing, with dozens of machines operating in parallel. Each one can continuously produce soles or upper parts, while artificial intelligence software adjusts in real time parameters such as density, temperature, and extrusion speed. This ensures large-scale consistency and quality, something that once seemed impossible. Another major advancement was the creation of smart materials that respond to heat, pressure, and movement. This opened the door to shoes that adapt to the wearer's feet over time, increasing both comfort and durability. This kind of innovation shows how 3D printing has evolved from a technological curiosity into one of the main pillars of the global footwear industry. Luxury and fashion brands have also begun experimenting with this technique, creating limited editions of futuristic shoes with designs that could never be made by hand or with traditional molding. This democratization, from high-performance sportswear to runway fashion, solidifies 3D printing as a revolution in motion. But perhaps the most fascinating part lies in the lesser-known details and technical curiosities that emerged throughout this process, revealing the hidden side of how these futuristic shoes are made. Behind the futuristic design and industrial precision, there are details that make 3D printed shoes even more intriguing. One surprising fact is that many models have no traditional shoelaces. Instead, they are printed with integrated elastic structures that automatically adjust the shoe to the user's foot. This eliminates the need for seams or extra reinforcements, making the product lighter and more ergonomic. Another interesting fact is that 3D printing makes it possible to create soles with geometries that are impossible to achieve through conventional methods. Some of them mimic honeycombs, spirals, or microscopic grids designed by computer algorithms. These shapes not only reduce weight but also distribute pressure evenly, improving performance during running and other athletic activities. There are also experimental versions that use biomaterials such as corn-based polymers or even plant cellulose fibers. These materials are biodegradable, which means that in the future, shoes could be designed to naturally decompose after a few years of use, reducing their environmental impact. Interestingly, some luxury prototypes are printed with metallic powder or even carbon elements, giving the shoes a futuristic look and extreme durability. These models are often collector's pieces, closer to sculptures than everyday footwear. There's also a cultural side to all this. At some international design fairs, 3D printed shoes have been presented as digital artworks, where artists explore the creative freedom offered by this technology. After all, when every single layer is computer-controlled, there are no limits to what shapes can be created. But despite all this innovation, one key point remains essential. How do these shoes go from the printer to the final customer? To understand that, we need to look at the logistics and distribution of this emerging industry. After the 3D printed shoe is removed from the printer and goes through its final manual adjustments, the next stage begins: logistics. Unlike traditional factories where thousands of identical pairs leave in standardized boxes, here every order can be unique, which requires a more customized packaging process. Many companies use smart boxes made of recycled paper that adapt to the shape of the shoe and eliminate the need for excess plastic. When it comes to transportation, there's a big advantage. 3D printed shoes are usually made close to the final consumer. Instead of crossing oceans on cargo ships and planes like sneakers made in Asia, these models can be printed in local distribution centers. cutting freight costs and reducing carbon emissions. This creates a new concept of decentralized factories, where each city could have its own small-scale production unit. When the customer finally receives the product, the experience is completely different from opening a regular shoebox. Many times, the package includes a QR code that shows the entire printing process, from the digital design to the final layers of the sole. This transparency creates an emotional connection. It's not just a shoe, it's a piece of industrial engineering made specifically for you. That sense of exclusivity is what keeps attracting more and more people to this kind of innovation. And so, the shoes you wear might not just be everyday objects, but true works of engineering, shaped layer by 3D printers and smart materials. What's fascinating is that behind all this technology, there's still the same human need for comfort, style, and connection to the world around us. While many people still think of technology as something cold and distant, this revolution proves that it can be personal, sustainable, and even artistic, all while changing the way we consume, produce, and express ourselves. And if you think about it, every 3D printed shoe is a reminder that what seemed impossible yesterday can easily become reality today. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Which city and country? Leave your greeting in the comments below. I'd love to know every corner of the world that's following this revolution. And if this video surprised you, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel to keep up with the next innovations that are changing how we see technology, fashion, and engineering. Who knows what the next breakthrough will bring?